Andrew Yang, Trump-centered media impeachment narrative not helpful for Dems. By Tony Lee on October 2, 2019. Presidential candidate Andrew Yang is worried that if impeachment dominates the 24-hour news cycle, it will hurt Democrats who are trying to win over swing voters who have been impacted by automation associated with the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I think the Trump-centered media narrative is generally not helpful because there's a real Democratic tendency to say that Trump is the embodiment of all of our problems. And if we just get him out, the problems go away, Yang told CNBC's John Harwood in a podcast interview released on Wednesday. Harwood asked if it will be a negative thing if impeachment dominates the political discussion for quite a long time and drowns out voices discussing the future of work and problems associated with it. Yang added that Trump's leaving office will not restore the 30% of stores and malls that are closing, emphasizing that a mall could go from being a pillar of the community to the source of blight if you empty it out. Yang also said that 3.5 million truckers losing jobs to automation will not get their jobs back just because Trump leaves office. The real problems of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the greatest economic transformation in our history, brought Donald Trump into office and they do not disappear if he leaves office, Yang said. He said Democrats must dig into what got Trump elected and address those root causes to have a chance of beating Trump. If we treat the symptom like it's the source of the problem in Donald Trump, then unfortunately things are going to get worse underneath our feet, Yang said. Yang, whose campaign is getting momentum and who hauled in $10 million in the last fundraising quarter, with nearly $6 million cash on hand, has called himself Trump's kryptonite. The entrepreneur, who has been drawing thousands of people across the country at his rallies, has been making the case that he is actually the best Democrat to take on Trump because he can win over plenty of disaffected Trump voters who have been showing up to his rallies and temporarily changing their party identification to vote for him in the primaries. Oddsmakers agree, as Yang is predicted to have the best chance of beating Trump in a one-on-one matchup in the general election if the entrepreneur somehow makes it there. Joe Biden to Trump, "I'm not going anywhere." By Joel B. Polak on October 2, 2019. Former Vice President Joe Biden compiled what was said to be his response Wednesday evening in Reno, Nevada to President Donald Trump's allegations of corruption, declaring in his prepared text, "I'm not going anywhere." The tagline, with its unfortunate double meaning, was reported by The Washington Post, which obtained excerpts of the speech in advance, merely hours after several new polls suggested that Senator Elizabeth Warren, DMA, had surged past Biden into first place in the race for the Democratic Party's 2020 presidential nomination. A Monmouth poll of early primary states released Wednesday found Warren, 28%, ahead of Biden, 25%, by 3%, barely within the poll's 3.1% margin of error. A new YouGov/Economist poll found Warren, 28%, ahead of Biden, 22%, by 6%. Moreover, the breaking news that Senator Bernie Sanders, IVT, 78, had been admitted to hospital for emergency heart surgery also drew attention to Biden's age, 76, and his own history of health problems. Still, Biden wanted Trump, and Democrats, to know that he would fight on, in response to Trump's charges that he and his son, Hunter, were stone-cold crooked. The Washington Post reported from his remarks, as prepared for delivery. "Let me make something clear to Trump and his hatchet men and the special interests funding his attacks against me. I'm not going anywhere," Biden will say. "You're not going to destroy me. And you're not going to destroy my family. I don't care how much money you spend or how dirty the attacks get." Biden said Trump sought to discredit him and his family because, like every bully in history, he's afraid. He's afraid of just how badly I would beat him next November. The Post concluded its story by quoting Biden. "Nobody has ever asserted that I did anything wrong except he and what's that fellow's name? Rudy Giuliani?" Joel B. Polak is senior editor-at-large at Breitbart News. He earned an AB in Social Studies and Environmental Science and Public Policy from Harvard College, and a JD from Harvard Law School. He is a winner of the 2018 Robert Novak Journalism Alumni Fellowship. He is also the co-author of How Trump Won, The Inside Story of the Revolution, which is available from Regnery. Follow him on Twitter @JoelPolak. Hillary Clinton, We need to look at transcripts of Trump-Putin calls. By Pam Key on October 2, 2019. On Wednesday's broadcast of MSNBC's The Rachel Maddow Show, former Secretary of State and 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton called for Congress to look at transcripts of calls between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in light of the whistleblower Ukraine controversy. Clinton said, he, obviously, used taxpayer-funded assistance, passed by the Congress on a bipartisan basis, to both threaten and intimidate the new president of Ukraine, to investigate his political opponents for the purpose of advancing his own re-election. Now, that has so many elements in it, and it's one of the reasons why I think it's broken through to the American people. It also is troubling that Ukraine has been a subject of constant pressure from Vladimir Putin and the Russian interests in Ukraine. She continued, so you have the Trump administration, the president, the vice president, others actually pressuring a new president who has a part of his country invaded and occupied by Russian troops, and putting this poor new president in this vice. You think you are going to get military aid from us? Well, we have a favor to ask of you. Now, we know that the aggressiveness of Putin has been unchecked and, in fact, I would argue actually accelerated in both rhetoric and potential adverse actions to our interests because of what Trump has made clear that he supports and looks to Vladimir Putin. So Ukraine is a very specific example of what is at stake. But I don't think it's the only example that we could find if we looked at the transcripts of the calls with Vladimir Putin, for example. She added, we still have no notes, no reporting about the many meetings and the many calls. We do know that in the Oval Office early in his term Trump basically said to the Foreign Secretary of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, to the then Ambassador Kislyak, hey, I don't mind that interference in the election, wink wink. So this is about Ukraine, but Ukraine is the canary in the coal mine about what this president and his allies have been up to. Follow Pam Key on Twitter at PamKanan. Watch, Warren surrounded in Reno Airport by Trump supporters shouting stop the impeachment. By Hannah Blow on October 2, 2019. Trump supporters swarmed Senator Elizabeth Warren, DMA, at a Reno airport and demanded her to stop the impeachment of President Trump, according to a video posted by the Nevada GOP on Wednesday. The Nevada GOP posted a video of Trump supporters flocking the presidential candidate, holding signs and shouting, "Stop the impeachment and don't impeach," as she scurried along, dragging her luggage across the airport. One individual can be heard referring to her as Pocahontas. Nevadans greeted at a Warren in Reno and let them know exactly how they feel about the Democrats' despicable attempt to impeach at real Donald Trump and undo the 2016 election, the Nevada GOP wrote. Warren has openly expressed support for the Democrats' partisan impeachment inquiry, declaring last week, the House must impeach. It must start today. She told CNN's Out Front last week that she hoped the impeachment inquiry would be complete before voting begins next year. Oh, I hope that it is. I'd like to see us get to the bottom of this as quickly as possible, she said. CIA whistleblower failed to follow law by going to House Intel panel before IG. By Edwin Mora on October 2, 2019. A CIA officer whistleblower failed to follow the law for protecting members of the intelligence community, IC, seeking to report government malfeasance by going to the Democrat head of the House Intelligence Community before the IC Inspector General, IG. On Wednesday, the New York Times, NYT, revealed. The Democratic head of the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Adam B. Schiff of California, learned about the outlines of a CIA officer's concerns that President Trump had abused his power days before the officer filed a whistleblower complaint, according to a spokesman and current and former American officials. However, the Intelligence Community Whistleblower Protection Act, ICWA, of 1998 explicitly requires an official concerned about wrongdoing within the government to go to the IC Inspector General before the congressional panels in charge of oversight of the intelligence community. Under a section titled, Summary of Procedures for Reporting Urgent Concerns Pursuant to the ICWA, the official director of National Intelligence, DNI, website states, the employee may contact the Congressional Intelligence Committees directly as described in Clause I, only if the employee A, before making such a contact, furnishes to the DNI, through the ICAG, a statement of the employee's complaint or information and notice of the employee's intent to contact the Congressional Intelligence Committees directly, and b. obtains and follows from the DNI, through the ICAG, direction on how to contact the Congressional Intelligence Committees in accordance with necessary and appropriate security procedures. The CIA whistleblower in question went to House Intelligence Committee chairmanship's office days before the intelligence community's Inspector General, the internal investigator, and watchdog. Investigators from the office of the ICAG are expected to operate independently of political leadership and government. The whistleblower released information behind a July 25 call between President Trump and his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky. According to the whistleblower, the U.S. Commander-in-Chief abused his power by urging Zelensky to investigate former American Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter's ties to a potential criminal in Ukraine. Trump denies the allegations. The July call, however, is now at the center of the impeachment proceedings that House Democrats are pursuing. Former VP Biden is the leading Democrat presidential candidate.
Please let us know if you do not like the voice of BOT and your opinion about the video content to help us improve the service quality for next videos.